This is Research Like a Pro, episode 33, Negative Evidence versus Negative Results. Welcome to Research Like a Pro, a genealogy podcast about taking your research to the next level, hosted by Nicole Dyer and Diana Elder, accredited genealogy professional. Diana and Nicole are the mother-daughter team at FamilyLocket.com and the creators of the Amazon best-selling book, Research Like a Pro, A Genealogist's Guide. I'm Nicole, co-host of the podcast. Join Diana and me as we discuss how to stay organized, make progress in our research, and solve difficult cases. Let's go. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm Nicole Dyer, co-host of the Research Like a Pro Genealogy podcast. I'm here with the accredited genealogist, Diana Elder, my mom. Today, we are talking about negative evidence. Hi, Diana. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
How has your client research been going lately?
My client research has been really fun and fascinating. I just ended up doing a land study in Texas, looking up an original land patent that was given by the President of the Republic of Texas. It was kind of fun to actually read it. It's so different from looking at just the information that's given like on Ancestry, where they do just the index version of it. The actual land patent had this entire description of the land, and it was using a land measurement that probably most people haven't heard of. It's called, I guess, a VARA, V-A-R-A. And in doing some research on that, I found out it was a Spanish land measurement that Texas just kept using from the years of the Spanish, when the Spanish were in charge of the land. So that was kind of fun. That's why I love doing this. You are always learning something new, discovering something fun. And the other fun thing was up at the Family History Library, I had gotten a hold of the original land survey maps. Well, not the original ones, but Gregory Boyd has taken all the land patents, put them together, and mapped them out. So I was able to follow, when I'm reading the land description, how it goes so many varas down to the big elm and then going west so many degrees. Anyway, on the map, I was able to kind of follow that. It was fun.
Cool. Well, when this episode airs, it will be the week of Roots Tech. So if any of you listeners are going to be at Roots Tech, come and see us at our booth. We are having a booth on one day only, on Saturday. Our booth is number 1225. And the other days, we are sharing the booth with other people within the Genealogy Business Alliance. So I think the other days are going to be GRIP, the Genealogy Research Institute of Pittsburgh, and BCG, which is the Board for Certification of Genealogists. So we will be there on Saturday at booth 1225. And if you come by our booth, you can buy our books at a discount. Also, we'll have bookmarks and flowcharts and felt family trees for children. You can also enter to win a free registration for our online course, Research Like a Pro. So please stop by our booth. We'd love to see you. Also, come to our classes. And we have several classes. I think we're teaching almost every day. And you'll see us at our power hours and also at our individual classes. So just check the schedule at Roots Tech on the app to see when we're presenting. And then we are going to be setting up times for people to meet with us at the speaker unconferencing area. So if you want to come find us at our table, we'll publish that on our blog so that you can see when we'll be there. All right, let's jump into today's review.
Okay, this is a review from Shells BDN on Apple Podcasts, and she says, "Thank you for this great podcast. I literally took your advice and it helped me get through a very tedious painting job I tackled, which could have been so boring. After many years of going round in circles, I feel I understand things better." So thank you so much for that review. I love thinking of this listener, painting an entire room or whatever, listening to us. So we're glad we can help all of you get through boring jobs like washing dishes in my case, or, whatever you're doing that you just need a little bit of fun listening to how to research better.
It is fun, isn't it? So today we're talking about the difference between negative evidence and negative results. This kind of goes along with our last episode about indirect evidence versus direct evidence. So let's start with the definition of negative evidence again. Negative evidence is the absence of an expected situation or circumstance. So maybe you have been tracking a family in the 1880 census through the 1900 census and the 1910 census, and then one of the children who you think should be about 11 years old is now missing from the 1910 census. So now you have the absence of an expected situation. The child isn't listed with his family, so you maybe can make a hypothesis or build a case that that child died. So negative evidence is by definition indirect because you have to combine it with other evidence to come to a conclusion. It's not direct. So what is negative results and how does that relate to negative evidence?
Okay, so negative results is when you are doing a search. You're searching on an online database such as Family Search or Ancestry or another database, or you're looking through a microfilm or looking in a book, and your person of interest is not there. So what do? Do you just jump to the very next search, or do you take the time to record that search in your research log so that you don't do that search over and over and over again? If we do not keep track of our negative searches, we are doomed to repeat the search. And I know this for a fact because I have done this. When we first started researching at the Family History Library, Nicole and I would go and we'd get our county of interest where our ancestor lived, and we'd pull out every book and look really quickly in the index to see if the surname was there. And if it wasn't, we just put that book right back on the shelf. And I never kept track of exactly which books I'd looked in unless I found a positive entry for my person. So I didn't have a research log where I kept all the negative results. And so because I didn't do that, I've had to repeat some of those searches because I want to make sure I've done reasonably exhaustive research and searched in every possible area. So if we do not record that, yes, I looked in this microfilm, my person is not there, then guess what? We'll probably go back to that years down the road thinking, oh, look, here's a microfilm. They might be here in the court records. Whereas if we just recorded it, we would know, no, they're not in the court records. So negative searches, negative results. That is where we track what we're searching. Hopefully, we've made our research plan. We're looking at a database like a death index or death records. We say, this is what I searched for. No, the person was not there. So why is this important? Besides, making sure we don't repeat searches over and over, when we track our negative search results, we find really good information. We found where our people did not live, or where they did not marry, or where they did not die. So we can change our hypothesis and research in a new location. If we find that nothing was happening in a county after 1850, we can make a new hypothesis that they moved on and we don't need to keep looking there. Or we can say maybe they died and we look for extra evidence towards that point. So it's really, really valuable to keep track of our negative searches and our negative results.
Let's talk about some ways to purposefully record your negative results in your research log and kind of keep track of exactly where you searched. So when you put your search into your research log, you can make sure and note the search parameters that you looked through. So maybe it's the date that you searched, or maybe you searched from pages 1 to 50, or maybe you searched and found people with the same surname, just not the individual with the name you were looking for. So if you put those things into your research log, then it will give you more context for what you actually searched through and help you the next time you're doing a search. You could even just say there was nobody at all with the surname, but there is this similar surname that could be related. And if you're searching a database, it really helps to put the search parameters and say, I searched for this exact spelling with this place of birth and this date. And then I tried again, and that could be another entry in your research log. And I searched with different parameters and so forth. And then it's also really helpful to put the date that you searched that database because some databases are updated with more records at a later date. So you can come back and search that collection again if you notice that it has been updated with more records after a year or two. So when you create a source citation for your negative search that you can put into your research report, you'll want to put exactly when and where within that record or that source you searched. So here's an example. Say that you are looking at a microfilm for Maryland records in the Somerset Parish in Somerset County from 1650 to 1825. And let's say that you searched for all the years between 1666 and 1866 for the surname Ballard, and you didn't find any Ballards. So then your citation would be Maryland Records, Somerset Parish, Somerset County, 1650 to 1825, in quotes. That's the collection title. Then the description is negative search for Ballards between 1666 and 1866. Family History Library microfilm, number 441,446, item 2. So now somebody reading your report can see that you did reasonably exhaustive research because you searched all these different records. You even searched church records and Maryland County Parish records, whatever this really was. It looks like parish records. And you didn't find the Ballards. So you did reasonably exhaustive research. And that's what a citation of negative results can do for you. It helps you establish that you searched all the records that could possibly show the answer. So you definitely want to create a negative citation or just a citation of your negative results and put that in your research log so that you're ready to share it in your report. Now, after you do all of your searches and you're writing up your report, you can reevaluate your hypothesis. And if all of your findings were negative, then that can be a clue to you that perhaps the family didn't live in that area after a certain date. Or perhaps those negative results will lead you to a conclusion using that negative evidence, where you expect them to be on this tax list at a certain date, but they're not. So your conclusion is that they moved or died. So we have a cheat sheet on our website with examples of source citations showing negative searches. So make sure that you click into the show notes and click on the link there to look at our cheat sheet, and that will help you.
Right. And we hear a lot of questions for people in the study group and the eCourse when they're writing up their research, wondering what to do with those negative results. And a lot of times their project is pretty much all negative because the study group and eCourse people are using a brick wall, and that's why it's a brick wall, because there's no evidence. And it's really important for them to get all the negative results put into their research log, and then they can write it up. I see this all the time with people wondering how to actually cite that. So the examples will help you give some ideas. So when you have done your research, you've got this whole list of negative results, or you have got maybe a whole list of results that you need to analyze, negative evidence can be drawn from looking at your research question as a whole. So I'm going to give you an example. So we're going to take the case of the Ballard family of Somerset County, Maryland. And there is a book that states the original settler in this county was Charles Ballard, and his lifespan was 1640 to 1682. So we're talking early. And he and his wife, Sarah, had several children who all stayed in the county, and they had children. And guess what? They all named their children after each other, and so all the men are Charles, Henry, Jarvis, John, or Arnold, and the women are all Sarah, Elizabeth, Ann, and Eleanor. So we have multiple records of people of the same name, and they're multi-generational and really tricky to figure out who belongs to who. But in this client project, I needed to determine correct generations and relationships among all these people of the same name. And I had wills. Wills are great, and they name sons and daughters, but which Eleanor was the daughter, or which Henry was writing the will. So I discovered a great research help when I found that the tax lists from 1723 to 1759 had all been digitized and were on the Maryland State Archives page. And these were fabulous tax lists. Each entry gave the name of the person being taxed, whether they were the head of the household or a dependent, where they were located in the county, and the names of enslaved individuals in the household. So this was super helpful in determining how old people were or when they aged out enough to be in the poll tax, because the poll tax was levied on free males over the age of 15 and slaves of both sexes over 15. So I could track these households, and when a young man reached the age of 15, he would then be included as a dependent in the tax. So that was really helpful to see who was who, relationships, households. And it turned out that having the names of the enslaved people in the household was extremely helpful, because in the probate, the person writing the will would say which enslaved person would go with each of his children. And so that was really helpful. So, how did I do this? Well, we've talked before about the really great thing of putting information into tables. So, I made tables and grouped all the households. The very first tax list was 1723, and it shows a Charles Ballard of Wicomico. That was his location within the county. And he dictated his will the very next year after the tax, and then he dies. And then his widow, Eleanor, starts showing up in the tax list, and she's present every year in Wicomico. So he named his wife Eleanor in his will, and it was really evident from looking at the taxes that he died because he drops off the tax, and then she starts being the head of household, and she is named. So, what about Eleanor? She did not leave a will. I did not have any idea when she died, but I had a really good piece of negative evidence, and that was the year 1737, when she is no longer on the tax list. She's gone. And so I concluded she had died by 1737 using her absence on the tax list as negative evidence that she had died. And in her place in the Wicomico household was another Charles Ballard, who was their son. So tax lists are one of the things that we see negative evidence in the most, because of someone being listed year after year after year after year, and then they're gone. So again, they could have moved. That's another possibility, or they could have died. So we have to combine this with other evidence and put together a case. And as Nicole said, negative evidence is indirect. It's just a little bit different. It's the absence of something that you expect.
Tax lists are so interesting. If you haven't used a tax list to research yet, we recommend trying that out right away, because you might think that it's not going to tell you anything new or that the census records are better, but tax records usually happened every year. So you can really track when a person moved from one county to the next. Like we said, with that negative evidence, when they stop appearing on the tax list, that means they either moved or died or for some reason weren't taxed anymore. So it's also really important to understand the tax laws to be able to know at what age people were exempt from the poll tax, if that's the kind of tax it is, and whatnot. So in genealogy, we always have to seek to find additional clues to solidify our findings. So another search that Diana did was to search for land records or probate for Eleanor. Is that right?
Right, because, like we say, maybe there's another reason why she's not listed on the tax list. So I wanted to look for something else. But, she didn't have a will, but it should give us clues of things to look for in the
Right.
future.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And that the fact that somebody owned land will usually be evident in the tax records. So that's how you can go and tell, oh, okay, they were taxed for this amount of land. So now I'm going to look for land records and estate divisions and that kind of thing. So when somebody is absent from that tax list, so like, for example, her absence on the 1737 tax list gives us a great starting date for probate research to go see, okay, she must have died after this year because she's not on the tax list anymore. So maybe she has probate records beginning that year. So let's summarize. If Diana had done a simple search for Eleanor in 1737 tax list of Somerset County, she would have recorded a negative result in her research log. And then she could have added notes that a Charles Ballard was still listed in Wicomico and created a source citation for the negative search. Viewing the tax list as a whole and analyzing the data she gathered from Eleanor's husband's will of 1724, Diana used Eleanor's absence on that 1737 tax list as negative evidence that she had died by that date. So great, that really makes sense in how we can use negative evidence to really come to conclusions and help us to know where to look next.
Right. And I think it's important to mention that in this case, I think I was probably 90% sure, but there's always the possibility that another record will pop up that will change our hypothesis or our conclusion. So we always have to keep that in mind, that in genealogy writing, we should never say something is 100%. We should say, well, it's highly probable or almost certain. We use those qualifiers because we honestly, when working with these records, we are limited with what's available to us. We do the best we can, especially with this type of negative or indirect evidence. But we always have to realize that there's a possibility that we don't know the whole story. Obviously, we don't know the whole story. So it's always good to remember to qualify when we're writing up this research, saying, yeah, this is based on all the evidence. This is almost certainly when she died. And then that leaves us a little wiggle room in case there's something that comes up and we find out that we were wrong.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up our episode for today, but don't forget to get our free cheat sheet about negative search citations and negative evidence to help you with your citations and your research reports. And also, don't forget that if you have a question or something that you'd like us to talk about on the podcast, you can write us a review on Apple Podcasts or on Stitcher and ask your question there, or just email us or leave it in the blog comments. And we would be happy to address your questions on our next podcast episode. All right. Have a great week, and hopefully we will see you at Roots Tech.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to Research Like a Pro with Diana Elder, accredited genealogy professional, and Nicole Dyer. We hope that something you heard today will help you make progress in your own genealogy research. If you like what you heard, please leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher, or visit our website, familylocket.com, to contact us. You can find our book, Research Like a Pro, A Genealogist Guide, on Amazon.com and other booksellers. We hope you'll start now to research like a pro